Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and there is a Patreon requested video for a fight on this card which is already out, and that is the Inoue versus Ioka fight. And so that, of course, is an example of what you can use the Patreon for. Of course, that will be linked in the description, the Patreon, and you can also use it for betting tips and advice as well. I appreciate all the support I've had with it. And yeah, let's get straight into this one. And I mean, this is just an amazing fight. You cannot forget that this is one of the best fights in boxing at the moment, with two pound for pound stars. It's annoying that I feel it's not getting the same hype anymore post Nakatani's last fight, because, he was in a very competitive fight against Hernandez. But of course, it was Nakatani's first fight moving up in weight. It was against a tough, rugged Mexican. It always was going to be a difficult fight for Nakatani, and he didn't look bad. He definitely showed good moments in the fight. It was just, like I say, a lot more competitive than I'm sure fans were expecting, because nobody knew of Hernandez before that fight at a global level. So again, it was a bit of a shame to see that, like I say, the hype of that has possibly been derailed a little bit, and it kind of does follow the pattern that any kind of fight which is the final fight before a big fight normally has some kind of problems happening. I mean, of course, we had it with AJ Wilder. It could even happen with AJ Fury, but again, it kind of happened here. Of course, Nakatani didn't lose, but again, it just derailed a bit of the hype, and people aren't giving Nakatani the same credit of what he deserves through what he has achieved as a fighter so far, due, like I say, just going off of that last performance. But this is the fight which, like I say, will show who the pound for pound kind of star is. I mean, if Nakatani is able to come and get a win and defy the betting odds, then he will be up there with the pound for pound guys. He could even be ranked higher than Naoya Inoue pound for pound. I mean, he hasn't quite achieved, as much as Naoya Inoue, but if he beats him, then he's the only guy to have beaten him. And again, this is a real pound for pound moment, and I think also is going to be the fight to show for sure who is the best Japanese fighter around currently, and possibly of all time. I mean, you could definitely say that Naoya Inoue is the best Japanese fighter of all time. And of course, again, if Nakatani beats him, then again, it's showing that perhaps, Nakatani is the best, but otherwise, Japanese fighters, they're not really any other names that I would say are at the same level as these two at the moment. So again, Nakatani has kind of floated around in the background and has built a good name up for himself individually. But again, having this fight here with Naoya Inoue, which has been built up for such a long time, again, is really going to show skill-wise, of course, who is the best and who is the best Japanese fighter, arguably, of all time. It will also be interesting as well if Naoya Inoue loses this fight, no matter how possibly he loses it, if it would become the case of an automatic rematch to be made. Again, that wouldn't surprise me, like I say, through Inoue coming in as most likely the A side and heavily the favourite, which again I feel like is disrespectful for Nakatani, but again, he is the favourite for this fight. In that fight that Nakatani fought against Hernandez, of course, he was an undefeated Mexican Hernandez who really tested him in probably the hardest fight in which we've seen Nakatani be in through his pro career so far. Nakatani has actually been dropped in his pro career. It was a lot earlier on in his career, and it wasn't, a straight to the canvas one. He got caught by a shot when he came in a bit close and just touched down to the canvas with one of his hands. Again, he didn't actually touch the canvas, but I would still say pro wise at an elite level, it was most likely the hardest fight of his career that Hernandez won. So credit to Hernandez. I mean, Nakatani is a freeweight world champion. He has still been in hard fights, but he again has been through and fought a lot of tough guys, and I feel like I say, Hernandez definitely gave him one of, if not his toughest fight to date. So you could maybe argue that him moving up in weight to the super bantamweight division might be a step too far for the freeweight champion. Of course, also a former unified champion down at bantamweight. But again, we'll have to wait and see. It is, like I say, probably necessary that we saw him have a I suppose, warm-up fight to an extent, even though, like I say, it was a very competitive fight against Hernandez before the Inoue one. But I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me if Nakatani, coming off of that fight, felt like he needed another one before he went up against Inoue. But again, I'm glad that he didn't. He is actually, like I say, of course, he's a freeweight world champion already, and he's had over 30 fights, but he is only 28 years old, which is pretty incredible, to be fair. Like I say, the amount in which he achieved in the space of time of him being a pro. And I mean, he had less amateur experience than that of Naoya Inoue. Inoue is 5 years older at 33, and often you do see fighters, especially in lower weight divisions, at kind of that point of their career when they become 33, 34 years old, they do start to show a bit more of a visible decline than, of course, heavier weight fighters who can often go on for that much longer. Again, to keep yourselves down at that lower weight divisions and to keep the speed and the reactions in which you need. Again, it is something in which typically a younger fighter needs to be able to do. But of course, we haven't seen much of any kind of weakness come from Inoue in that way of age so far. And I mean, Nakatani, like I say, he's only 28 years old. Of course, he didn't have the same amateur experience as that of Naoya Inoue, but professionally, he has, like I say, progressed very well and pretty quickly as well. Inoue, you could argue, hasn't looked quite as destructive in KOing opponents recently, but he has been still making pretty easy work of them. Maybe he's not wanting to take as much of a risk from being knocked down them 2 times against Neri and Cardenas, but still, like I say, he's been dominating. Inoue has been in some big fights himself. You could argue that Inoue has fought the higher level of opposition. Of course, to name a couple like Daenerys, Fulton, Akhmadaliev. But also, I mean, Nakatani fought Ibuki as well, which is a good name to have on his resume, and obviously that's aged well. So, Inoue hasn't fought anybody who at this moment in time is, at least from memory, is a current world champion. Again, like I say, some top names in the past, as to that of, like I say, Daenerys, who obviously tested him harder than anybody else had. But again, Junto Nakatani has fought somebody who is technically still a world champion, I believe, in Ibuki. I might be wrong, actually. Oh, no, I am not wrong. It was a long time ago. It was back in 2016. And yeah, it was a competitive, well, still competitive, but again, still one-sided enough for Nakatani in that fight, but it still was a test for Nakatani very early on in his career, like I say, back in 2016 when Nakatani was still very young. Of course, like I say, is something there that Nakatani's got over Inoue, the fact that he is, has beaten a fighter who is a current world champion, even though it was many, many years ago now. But again, like I mentioned, Inoue has probably fought consistently higher level of opponents. Of course, I mean, Nakatani beat Nishida, who was on a real high at that point as a world champion. But then, you look at the guys otherwise. I mean, Rodriguez Jr., Francisco Rodriguez Jr. obviously just got tested positive, but again, that's not a bad win. Andrew Maloney, that was a brutal KO from Nakatani, but again, Maloney never really went on to a crazy amount. Other than that, like I say, he has achieved a lot, but again, some of the names just don't stand out perhaps as much as Inoue, who, like I say, has got wins against, like I mentioned, Fulton, Daenerys, Tapales, another name as well. I mean, former world champion there. Again, Emmanuel Rodriguez when he was undefeated. Again, a few good kind of level guys, real good opponents as well. And like I say, fighting Akhmadaliev when everybody was kind of claiming that he was scared to go up against against Akhmadaliev, even though he just went out there and made the fight look really easy. To be fair, I think Inoue has really been up against a whole plethora of different opponents, from your smart fighters to, like Daenerys, to your, real rugged fighters who are going to go out there and try and drag you into a war, like the likes of like a Cardenas or a Neri, just really high skilled fighters in the likes of Stephen Fulton as well, to, perhaps he hasn't fought as many taller fighters as to that of Nakatani, which is an interesting one. I mean, he fought Jamie McDonnell back in 2018, and he made easy work of him, knocking him out in the first round. But again, since then, that was a while ago now, I think the majority of his opponents haven't had that much of a side advantage. Maybe I take that back. I mean, looking at it, actually, David Picasso actually did have a similar kind of reach advantage to what Nakatani had. But again, Picasso had never really proven himself at the same kind of level as what Nakatani has. So again, he's maybe not quite as used to fighting somebody who is as tall as that of Nakatani. But again, the same kind of case for Nakatani when he fought Hernandez. Of course, that was the introduction of him into the super bantamweight division, and Hernandez was a very similar height to Nakatani, and he was actually taller than him. And so again, he's maybe not all that used to fighting guys all that tall either. So for Nakatani, it's going to be, like I say, something in which he's much more used to, punching down to the smaller fighters. And I mean, it's great that this fight also is on DAZN as well. I mean, the Akhmadaliev Inoue fight, like I say, was built at the time to be a really big fight from, Matchroom Boxing building up, but Top Rank, they streamed it, in the UK at least, on their Facebook page, which I thought was diabolical for a fight that sized. So again, it's really nice to see that DAZN have come and have brought both Inoue and Nakatani to the real kind of, like say, big stage here, and like I say, really put it on a stage in which it deserves as a fight. To speak about both fighters skill-wise individually, Inoue as a fighter, I mean, both fighters are going to be difficult to list all the things in which they do so well, but just to list a few. Inoue, he's explosive, he makes adjustments. I mean, I've spoke about both of these guys countless of times, but of course we've seen Inoue make adjustments, not just mid-fight when he's been dropped, but also, going into fights, he's always looked to have had a good game plan, like I say, to box however the fight goes and to handle the style in which he's up against. He's got great punch selection, he's got great timing, he'll make, like I said, the small adjustments, especially in his footwork as well. For the most part, there's times in which maybe he's holding his feet a little bit too much in more recent times, but again, he does typically make, like I say, when he's at his best, the little small footwork adjustments. He'll easily spray combinations all over, and again, he was doing that all night against Picasso and was just having success. And he's accurate, he'll work off a strong jab, he'll get through your guard, again, similarly in that way to Nakatani. Again, they've both got, I think, the same reach. He's spiteful with his work in Inoue. He'll, I think, is now starting to show that a little bit more discipline early. And again, when he fought Akhmadaliev, that was meant to be a, like I say, a real tough power test against a powerful opponent. And again, like I mentioned, Inoue was coming off not that long ago, having been knocked down twice, and then people were thinking that there might be vulnerabilities there. But the way that he showed that he could just completely outbox an opponent like Akhmadaliev and not really allow him to land any power shots and just completely nullify him, again, really did show that little bit more discipline in his work, again, especially early. And I think against Nakatani, he's going to have to show that same kind of level of discipline as well. And we'll have to wait and see if he can have success through that. He can outbox you. He'll improve throughout the fight. Nakatani is more, or has been more, shown to get the earlier knockouts than that of Inoue. Inoue has been shown to improve throughout fights and then get the stoppage if he's going to get it, whereas Nakatani has typically shown to, like I say, get an early knockout. Again, I think he's got more first, second round knockouts than that of Inoue throughout his career. He can box in close or at mid-range. Inoue, he, I think, actually does box in close better than that of Nakatani, even though Nakatani hasn't been dropped recently in close as much of as Inoue. I think Inoue, like I say, does box better in close with the shorter punches. He's got fast hands, he can handle pressure well, and he can make you respect him with, like I say, the punches in which he throws and the intent in which he throws them. Again, when he did get knocked down twice, he instantly, like I say, switched things up and was able to nullify the confidence in which his opponents had from knocking him down by pretty instantly making them respect him again. And again, that's something which he does very well. And Nakatani against Hernandez did perhaps show that he wasn't, Hernandez wasn't giving him that kind of same respect. And again, that was probably something different from what Nakatani is used to. And I think, that's something interesting to see. Negatives about Inoue, he can get caught out in close with his feet a little bit too close to you and then can be off balance, but Nakatani can be the same as well. His chin can be a little bit in the air at times. I don't think he is going to put on as much pressure as that of Hernandez. I mean, he's a different type of fighter, of course, styles, make fights, but I think the style of Inoue isn't going to put on that same kind of pressure, obviously, as that of Hernandez, because, Hernandez was still getting caught and being reckless doing that. And so, again, it will be interesting to see if Nakatani is going to be more comfortable boxing and moving and trying to have that kind of a chess match with Inoue. He can rely on his reflexes too much, and he can also drop his hands as well, Inoue, and with the speed of Nakatani as well, that could catch Inoue out. He's not got overly that strong of a guard, neither does Nakatani, to be honest, either. He can be, of course, like I mentioned, too comfortable early, and I think he is just not as used to taller fighters, but again, he has still fought them, so I might be proven wrong there. Nakatani, as a fighter, he at his best is accurate and he picks his punches at a mid-range. He is very sharp and, like I say, able to pick the punches well. He pairs up his hooks nicely, going high to low with them. I mean, he will go high to low in general, but against Nishida, he was really pairing up, just brutally pairing up uppercuts, and again, that was helping him have success against Hernandez as well. But again, also, the boxing at a mid-range aspect of his game is really impressive as well. Like I mentioned, using that high to low, but also using the full reach of his punches. And again, that was how he was able to knock out Astrolabio. And again, that was very impressive as well. He's got good punch variation. He can keep his shape pretty well for the most part, but when he does square up, he is a bit more of a wider target, but it's not as often. He will work if you stay still. If you're still at any point, just like say covering up with a guard, he will just throw, and he'll throw a lot, and he doesn't need to land typically clean to hurt you. There's been times in which he has been able to drop and hurt opponents without landing that clean, but again, I'm not convinced just yet of his power at super bantamweight if it has carried. He is typically able to be good at winning wars, and he has shown a good chin, I believe, as well. And I think he is more comfortable going toe to toe than that of what Inoue might be. I think Inoue is comfortable in a war and in a big kind of intense situation, intense fight, but he'll be more trying to get out of them kind of issues, whereas Nakatani can get drawn into it, which isn't the best, but he can often then, like say, result to him winning them. And he'll lead you on to punches as well. Like I mentioned, that Maloney KO, he really led him onto that punch, which was very impressive later on. Negatives about Nakatani, I think he's got wider punches. I think the technique in which Inoue throws his punches, because he has them smaller levers in close, does help him. Of course, it's good to have the kind of size and stuff, but again, you have to be able to create them short punches, and he can do that, Nakatani, well, but I think it does leave more gaps when he's doing that. Like I say, he can get drawn into toe to toe. If he can't push you back in close, again, he can get backed up and then, like I say, can just get drawn in and then is just trading, getting caught. And he is a bigger target with his size as well than that of Inoue. And of course, like I mentioned, Inoue will spray punches all over with his fast hands, so will be more of a target for him to land on. He is open in close, in my opinion, Nakatani, or more open. His accuracy can drop when the fight is at a higher tempo, especially later on into the fight. So if Inoue can increase that tempo later on, he might be able to have more success. Like I say, he does improve throughout Inoue, and he does throw shots low when he is being perhaps overly aggressive at times, and again, that can just leave that gap up top, which again, Inoue with his speed might be able to capitalize upon. Who I think is going to be able to win this fight? I think that Naoya Inoue is going to be able to win a unanimous decision. I think that Nakatani has shown a good enough chin to not get stopped by Inoue, but I think, Nakatani could time Inoue onto punches, but I believe Inoue, like I say, will be able to spray punches all over. I think he is going to be able to have more success and be able to land that little bit more. I think that Nakatani, with his jab, can have success as well, but I think if it does go in close at times, again, the gaps will open up more for Nakatani than it will for Inoue. Of course, Inoue does drop his hands as well, but I think, like I said, the shorter punches of Inoue will help him reach the target that little bit quicker and beat him to the punch. And again, I think I've seen Inoue make the adjustments as well if things aren't going in his way, more than I've seen Nakatani do that as well. I think he's more accurate in close as well, Inoue, and again, we'll have to wait and see, but it's definitely going to be a competitive fight. But again, I think Inoue will improve throughout, and just like I say, grow into the fight that little bit more than that of Nakatani will be able to, and then be able to win a unanimous decision, which will be a very impressive victory, of course, for Inoue as well. Arguably the best of his career, you know, at this time. Again, he hasn't really got anything left to prove at super bantamweight, I don't believe. I mean, he has. I think when he first went into super bantamweight, he really wasn't going to stay around for that long. I think that was his plan originally, but he has stayed around for a little bit now, and he has just made easy work of everybody for the most part. But again, like I say, being knocked down, he was then still able to come back and then make easy work of them. And so if he's able to win this fight, I think there really isn't anything left for him to do at super bantamweight. I doubt that there is a rematch clause for this fight, if I'm being honest. So, I mean, there's Martin, who's a Filipino fighter who's like undefeated, but again, he's with the WBO. You know, you look in the Ring Magazine rankings, there's nobody that deserves a shot against Inoue. Martin doesn't, but he's just undefeated, and they might try and push that fight, the WBO, I believe it is. But otherwise, I mean, he should, for the fans' point, and I think His Excellency will encourage him to move up into the featherweight division. Of course, like I say, he's only going to get older now, so I think if he is ever going to move up into the featherweight division and get a few more tests where, you know, if he loses, he's already achieved so much, then I think this is now the time. And so, again, of course, Top Rank have worked with Naoya Inoue, Junto Nakatani, and Tekken Promotions quite often, and so I'm sure it will probably be a Top Rank champion. Of course, they had 3 out of the 4 champions at the moment, so I think at featherweight, so I think it will either be Rafael Espinoza or Bruce Carrington that Inoue will fight. I mean, both have mentioned the Inoue name. I think Espinoza size-wise will be an interesting challenge, but Carrington skill-wise is probably better than that of Espinoza. So again, it will be interesting, but I think it is now the time for Naoya Inoue to move up in weight. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.